today is really an opportunity for us to think about the last phase of the cycle, which is moving with a mindset of courage. We have now gone through just about every phase, and we imagine that this is a continued process, but today we're really going to talk about courage for you all in a couple of different ways. We are going to reflect on your learning thus far and kind of think about what you've learned and maybe some of the places you've leaned into courage. We're going to hone in on an instructional prototype or practice you want to focus on coming in the fall based on your cogens. And we are going to celebrate and affirm your work. You've done a lot. It's been great to work with you all. So before we jump into that, given those purposes, I just want to give you all a chance to do some thinking. See this lovely quote Shane put in here that says, "Courage starts with showing up and letting ourselves be seen." Take some time to just jot down some thoughts around this question. How has this year called on you to tap into and/or exhibit new levels of courage to make change? Where are you all entering with that prompt? Take a few to jot down some notes. All right. I won't have everyone share, but I would love for us as a collective to hear from at least 3 people coming into this session, knowing that we're moving to the move phase of our series together. Just when have you actually had to call on courage, tap into courage as we've gone through this year together? New levels of courage, by the way.
Start.
Thank you.
I just jotted down that when I met with this PoGen group recently, we had talked as our group of CNB that we were going to really be more purposeful with naming who we were calling to our groups and going back to our original inquiry question. And so the courage to not shy away from really naming and putting the language there that needs to be there for our students at the margins, and just telling them we want to hear our Indigenous voices and from you, and just not shying away from that as much. I think that that's the courage, and it felt so good. And yeah.
That is so good, Amanda. That is exactly where we wanted you all to go last round. So I'm so happy and just excited to hear that. Thank you for sharing. Who else?
I'll go. I think I exhibited new levels of courage by going through and doing the cogen discussions, even though there was only like 1 more week left of school. But, you know, usually like, I'm like, okay, I'm winding down, but wanting to continue this work even till the end. So listening to student voices till the end and trying to make adjustments, even though there were only a few days left.
That is huge as well, especially at the very, very end. It just, again, I'm very much humbled to hear that is where you went in the last week of school and still carrying on the hearing of your voices and making adjustments. I thought you were just going to say listening to them, but you said and making adjustments. So definitely tapping into some new levels of courage and adamance there. So thank you, Anna. Last person, actually, let's hear from one of our admin on this one. You all, we don't usually ask to hear you all, but you've been doing a lot of observing and working with your teams as you all have gone back. New levels of courage. Let's hear from one of you all.
I think I had to draw on a lot of courage this year to, as administrators are in the middle, you know, we take directives from the top, but we also listen to our people, our teachers, and not everyone is ever at the same place on a staff. But I've really tried to listen hard to the teachers from CNB that are here and many others that are curious about the work these people are doing and asking them. And I'm taking courage in elbowing up to a colleague whose school, another middle school, is near us to say, these teachers are doing really good stuff, and maybe our district isn't seeing it, but who cares? Do you want to join forces, kind of? And getting like, that sounds amazing, you know? And so we don't care about the recognition. That's not what this is about. This is about like believing and listening to the people here, seeing how important these teachers in this group are, because they've already had it's a small domino effect, but they've had one at CNB. And I'm trying to have that same small effect with a friend, a colleague that's also excited about this work. So it's taken a lot of courage, because I'm an outsider to this district, and I've only been here not even a full year, and I've hit lots of roadblocks, like lots. So thanks.
Thank you, Elise. And once again, like, super excited that you're going to shoulder up with a colleague. That's amazing. Veronica, I saw you come off mute. We may as well just even it out with the other team.
Sure, thank you. So, I'm a new administrator, not new to my district, but new to my school and new to the role. And I think doing this work and doing the empathy interviews and then hearing from my teachers who've been doing this work as well with some of our most marginalized students has really pushed me to take on the task of representing student voices in meetings and speaking up for them in ways that can be challenging, because I think there's a way that we're used to responding to students, especially our students who struggle. And I got really close to a few of our middle school students who are really struggling this year. And there was a lot of dissonance between the way I saw them and the way they were being perceived, I think. And it was a challenge for me because I got more emotionally involved than I really have in the past, even as a teacher with some of the kids. And just, I think part of it also was doing this work and then, feeling that obligation, because it really is a sort of matter of how their life trajectory might go, especially when they're getting to this age, to stand up for them and what I thought was, what I heard from them would help them, more than even what I thought would be best. So that was powerful and hard.
Look at you choosing the margins, Veronica. Do that. Thank you all for sharing. I can imagine if we had everyone come off of mute and share, there are many ways that you all have tapped into courage this year. And you all forgot to mention that you tapped in by just signing up with these 2-3 random ladies who were like, hey, you want to do some learning together? You were like, sure, let's do it. And you came every time. So thank you for tapping into real courage to go on this journey with us there as well. And that is our frame for today. How are we continuing to move with this mindset of courage? So before we get to thinking about prototyping based on what you've learned so far, we need to kind of call up what you have learned over this series. And so we want to do that in 2 ways. However, we have to have a witness to help us with this entire process today. And so I'm actually this time going to call Jennifer, because she's been here this whole series. And I'm kind of wondering, Jennifer, if you would not only do today for us specifically, but you would kind of give us, like, over the time that you've been with us during this series, what you've witnessed as well. Can I call you today?
Yes. And you will hear lots of witnessing from me as I produce this thing and put it out into the world on YouTube and write blog posts about it. We'll come back on the podcast. And yes, I have lots and lots of reflections I can share. Yes, I accept the offer. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you for accepting the offer. I really appreciate it. I can't wait to hear all these reflections. Folks, take a second really quick at the bottom of our agenda to look at the agreements and just pick one you want to hold today. You don't need to share it, just hold it. Everybody got one? All right. So we are going to do some reflecting on what you have learned in the series, and we're going to do that in 2 ways. So everybody click on the link in there with the Jamboard. And what we would like you to do in your teams, this first part, you're going to be just in your home team. You're going to look at your original Jamboard. You should see them there, the challenges that you were thinking about and the questions that you had come to us with. And what we want you to do is then add a page. You should see, for example, on page 4 and 5 for each of your schools. That actually has both schools with not a new image. But there is a new page for you to do some reflecting on specifically what you are learning from the Cogen process and then what you learned from the full series. We want you to think about the Cogen process because last time we asked you to do it again. And so for some of you were able to do that, some of you were not able to, that's totally fine. But collectively, what have we really gained from doing Cogens with students? On the second side, you've also been in this whole series with us and we've done different things at different times. And some things that you may have pulled out might be different from other folks. And so we want to give you a chance to kind of pull out those learnings. And then we're going to use that to say, given what's bubbling up for us, where do we need to focus? Combining both of those pedagogically. So each of you, I think I can't, okay, I see you in the Jamboard now. Each of you all is in the Jamboard. If you would decide when you get there, if you're all going to be putting Post-it notes or if there's just going to be one person that's putting Post-it notes, that would be great. But you are going to have, I'll start you off with 15 minutes in your group to work on this. And then I would love to bring you all together to kind of look at everybody's Jamboards and see where the teams are at with their reflection.
Do we want to all put Post-its or just one of us be the scribe?
I'm happy to take notes if people just want to talk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so just tell me what part you're talking about and I will.
Before you do that though, make sure you all, if you haven't already, just go back to your first one so you guys are grounded in that good old question you started with.
Okay.
And then I think on your next slide, you have the student engagement piece. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Oh, and then we did, that was just the space of time. Okay. So does anybody want to answer either of these? What have we been learning from the Cogen process so far? Or what have we learned from the sessions overall?
To me, I think for the Cogen, I only have a chance to do only once because the following week, I think that was, or maybe a week after that, or 2 weeks after that, I read and I had to stay at home. And so I missed, and then we had also, before we had also the standardized testing. So anyway, I only have a chance to do it only once. It was very open-eyed experience for me because the students were really, really receptive and they were really, really ready to talk, to just to exteriorize what they were thinking. I was a little surprised. I thought it was more reserved because of, because of different generation, because different status. But it wasn't like that. I mean, it was just like really a lot of talking. And that kind of like made me think that we have to have more, many more, this has to be more regular, to talk to them, to really, really listen and act based on what they need, everything that they're talking. So that's one thing. And now the other thing is that I think was one of the questions that was in the, what is real learning for the student or something like that, I think was one of our last questions. And so what I'm thinking now, basically what is my learning in this process was, okay, listening is important. It's not important, it's essential. It's a change, a dramatic change in my teaching. But then what I'm gonna do with that listening? I mean, that's something that I am connecting with what is real learning for them, right? So what I mean is that coaching is a necessary and a fundamental start, but it's not the end. I mean, it's just at the start of the process. That's what I'm on right now.
And I wonder if with just one cogen, there wasn't enough time to get to the thing that they really wanted to see different or to see changed, right?
Right.
Anna, how many were you able to do?
I was able to do just 2.
Ooh.
2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but similar to Rafa, I think something that I learned from this cogen process and just from these sessions is the importance of listening to students' voices, and just like the excitement they get from it, the community we build, and the ownership that they have, that they feel with this work. Like in my cogen meeting, the first one, we created like an anchor chart with all of their ideas, and they were like going up there, like adding to the anchor chart, adding their own pictures, like that to go with their solutions, with their strategies. So just taking ownership. There was also a lot of joy I felt like in those meetings. So listening to their voices. I think, and creating that joy in the classroom is definitely something that I've learned through this process. And like Rafa said, that like, okay, what are we going to do with all this that we have learned? And sadly, I feel that I didn't have much time to do a lot with it, but I'm really excited to continue this work in the fall and hopefully get started right away.
And I think I saw too how powerful it is for all of us to hear directly from students, because I feel like things that I could say to someone in a professional development, or that we could say to each other, don't have quite the same impact they do as when a similar idea comes directly from a student. And so I really felt like everyone who participated, even people who aren't here today, I really saw them be deeply impacted by doing this, even just a little bit, and there's a lot of enthusiasm for continuing the work, which makes me really hopeful for the possibility to bring it to the larger staff next year, now that we've gotten to try it out.
So I was going to start to write a few of the things I heard. That's all right. Like I heard that, well, Veronica, I saw you taking a lot of notes, but just that we can, like, just listening, a little bit to students really can help us sort of see a bigger picture. Is that a little bit of what I heard from you all? Like even just listening for a half an hour can help us like broaden our view. Mm-hmm. What else did you hear, Veronica?
Well, that ideally, I'll put this in, we need to make cogens a more regular practice. Students are ready to talk. We may need time to get to the heart of what they want to say.
also what Rafa said, that it's not enough to just listen, but that we have to take action.
Yeah.
No, I just want to, I mean, I'm reading now a new book because, you know, it's just a custom that I have in the summer, reading books about education. And I just started this one here. I don't know if you see it, but this one here. It's in Spanish, but it's okay. It's called The Good and the Bad Education. And it's really very interesting. And it really connects very well with the, you know, the cogen experience, because he say basically that things that we have to be as good teachers is, for example, have high expectation on our students, and not tolerate, for example, absenteeism, or, for example, diagnose what the students need, set the goals, clear goals. And of course, I mean, if we don't hear our students, if we don't know what their students are, that is going to be just theoretical. I mean, it's not really real. It's not really what our student needs, right? So, and that's why I'm saying, you know, that doing the coaching is so important, because if we really want to deliver a great level of education, we need to know where the students are, who they are, what they need. But that doesn't mean that it's just listening. It's just, okay, I listen what you say. This is what I expect from you. This is what you can ask me. And this is what I'm gonna do for you, etc.
Something like this. To summarize, to deliver high quality education, we really need to know where our students are and figure out how to reach them there or meet them there.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for doing this.
Uh-huh.
I think something else I've learned with this process is to focus on the connections with students. And then even though it's like super hard for me, like push the content a little like to the side, and focus more on creating these relationships with students and hearing their stories.
To give them space
Mm-hmm.
to tell their stories
Mm-hmm.
and share their perspective.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a big question I have for you, Anna, is you remember we were talking in the beginning about like, oh my God, it's so hard to know like where we're going with the structure piece. Remember that in the beginning?
Yeah.
How does that feel today?
I feel like now a little like I feel better with some like chaos. I just feel better like with not having everything like figured out, and more flexible in changes I could make or what my classroom could look like next year.
Okay, yeah, I was so curious about that, but we have a little bit of a similarity there where I like to really understand. It's taking me a long time, so you got there a lot faster than me,
Yeah.
but no, you have partners in trying to continuously work through that. It's really, really hard, especially if you're a planner kind of a person too. It's like a big thing. So I was curious about that. I didn't know if I'd have a chance to ask. Awesome. I got to see both groups as I was in with BVHM. So I see that both of you all were able to get some real thoughts down. I would love if somebody would be a representative from each school. Sorry, actually, let's not do a representative. Can you go back to sharing your screen, Veronica? Actually, that was really helpful. But I would love to give us a chance to look at each school's thoughts and see what we can pull up and either affirm as we're looking at each of the team's pages, or where you see commonalities. So Veronica, if you have it up, you can look through on your own, but Veronica, if you would just leave this up for like 30 seconds where you had it, for people to just take notice, what can we affirm? Or similarities we'll see between the two. I'll have you hold this one for 30 seconds and then put the other one up for 30 seconds. Thank you. So team, what are you seeing? What affirmations do you have for yourselves? Let's start there. What affirmations do you have across teams? And or commonalities?
You see a common thread of student voice, student perspective, and hearing them and hearing their stories.
Yeah, and the word connect or connection is really threaded through both of them as well.
I see that cogens and the process should be embedded in practice.
That this is messy work, that it isn't linear.
Yeah, and I would just add on to the affirmation that you all were somehow able to engage in that messiness, right? That's something I see in both teams. And Shane and I got to meet with each of your teams individually, and you have real stuff going on at your sites, and somehow you still engage in the messiness and trying to navigate your way through clarity on that. So I would affirm that as well. Anyone else?
I just love this here where it says our students have the answers. And I just want to affirm that and our ability to believe in that, would listen to them.
Let's think about what it might be like if we did listen to them. Because it is my understanding that students told you all some pretty concrete things here. If they didn't tell you concrete things, they certainly gave you energy in places that they were excited to explore. I heard in the group I was in that there were certain times where joy emerged in certain pieces of the conversation, that kids were adding their thoughts to the cogen. So all of those things say to me, all right, if we went further, they probably have some more ideas the more we get clearer and clearer and clearer and narrower, right? So with the spirit of moving with a mindset of courage, we wanted to kind of offer you all a little bit of a scaffold to kind of help with direction. So if we were going to have 6 more months of the school year, what we would do right now is have you go back to your cogen, continue to narrow, and then ask the kids eventually, what change are we going to make? Try it and continue to do it. Thank you, Veronica, by the way, right? We'd do that over and over. But the school year ended, and that's okay. So we want to kind of give you a chance to think about what you know so far and identify a practice that you're already going to start the year with, potentially. And what we have at our disposal is tree data. We have Pedagogy of Voice. And what's really great about this is we can connect it back to your flip grids. So you all remember when you did your flip grids and you kind of identified your areas of practice that you struggle with, and some of you all even align that to Pedagogy of Voice. We can bring together what you learned from the cogen, what you remember kind of being your struggle within the area we're talking about, and what you've learned through the series, and start to say, hey, where might I prioritize next year? And what's so great about the 6 simple rules is that we literally get to pick an area and go all in on it starting out, and then get back into your cogens as you continue out through the year. So I'm going to do a quick grounding with you all with these 6 simple rules. If you have the book in front of you, we are in the whole section around Pedagogy of Voice starts on 107. But on the participant agenda, you can see the 6 simple rules just pulled out right for you. But if you wanted to go deeper to help you when you're deciding, page 107 is where you would start. Quick review of the Pedagogy of Voice rules here. Talk less and smile more. Open-ended questions are our friend, and allowing kids to be able to talk more than we talk is a great thing, or at least have half the time of them talking is a great thing. And our smiles go a long way. It's really hard when kids think that we don't like them. And when we smile, it's also another way to affirm. So I would just pull that out of talk less and smile more. You might be in a place where you need to really consider the amount of talking you're doing and the way that you are affirming kids with with your facial expressions. Second, questions over answers. That is pretty self-explanatory. How much are we providing students with open opportunities to explore and discuss content over closing, where we want them to closing the questions and looking for specific answers? When we think about questions over answers, it really leads us more to an inquiry-based approach, with the outcome being a little bit more expansive and answers not being the thing that's most important, but really students' exploration of the questions that we are asking them. Ritualizing reflection and revision. What I love about these, they're so self-explanatory, but we make consistent opportunities for kids to reflect on what they're doing, us giving them feedback on what they are doing, and then revising their work. We need to ritualize that. Always opportunities to do that. Sometimes that's hard for us to do, to make that a ritual. We might do it here and there, but really making that a structure that we are always engaged in is another thing. Make learning public is actually my favorite. It's a little bit of what we're doing here, Jennifer, with the series, and that's you learn something. How are you sharing that? How are you presenting that? How does everybody get a chance to understand what you are working through and kind of internalizing from the content you're teaching? And for leaders and us as educators, another way that I think about making learning public is my vulnerability about what I'm struggling with. So when we think about kids making their learning public, it's so amazing when kids can go to the board and say, here's what I was thinking about this problem, but I'm stuck in this place. I really wish a friend could help me with this. And then to see kids do that. I got to see it last week with my favorite teacher. It's pretty awesome. So making learning public, circle up, bringing us together, breaking down the walls, getting away from the rows and discussion, bouncing you to really creating circles where we all can discuss and have that open conversation and voice. And then feedback over grades. What are we prioritizing when we are talking about mastery for kids? Is what we are assessing them on allowing us to give them meaningful feedback that's going to help them grow? Or is it really about us getting to this particular point that basically says you have met my expectations or not, and that's the end? So with that being said, I want you to kind of, if there's one that you were thinking about that sounds kind of interesting to you as I was talking, or one that you already had in your mind, I'm going to give you all an opportunity to go into your groups and talk about what could we prototype with one of these simple rules. I really want you all to get to a place where either all of you as a collective say we want to focus on one simple rule, or you decide we're all going to focus on different simple rules. Either way, it doesn't matter, but I want you to decide that kind of together, which route you're going to go. And before we do that, I want to just draw your attention to the agenda to give you a couple of reminders. We did this last time. We are really emphasizing you staying in your inquiry question. So don't go getting ideas about a whole nother thing, maybe around, I don't even know an example. You have your two things here for C and B. You're thinking about increasing a sense of belonging for Indigenous students. Doesn't mean you have to, pry Indigenous students, but that's where your mind is at. Sense of belonging for Indigenous students. For BVHM, increasing student engagement for students at the margins. When you are picking your prototype, it needs to be in that place. So that's my first reminder for you all to think about those questions. How do you increase those two things? And then the other thing I wanted to do is just give you a quick example and tie those to the simple rules. We forget sometimes that we were like in the classroom too, and we like to think about pedagogy. So we came up with a couple of examples of things that we have done before. So one instructional shift you might, and these are in the participant agenda, it's in purple. One instructional shift you might prototype is setting up a structure for weekly one-on-one holistic conferring or dialogue journaling with students at the margins. That is an opportunity for you to ritualize reflection and revision. Really sitting with your kids, each of them in the classroom, having that conference with them to both gather street data, but also give them feedback to help them make progress. That might be something you all prototype. Jennifer, did you want to say any more about dialogue journaling?
Yeah, so I linked to a blog post about it, which has a podcast interview associated with it. And this has been promoted by several different teachers. It is a process of literally sharing a journal with a student. And teachers that have used it as a process speak volumes about the power of it, not only as a relationship building tool, but also as an assessment tool for academics. And it's something that a lot of teachers struggle with to manage for whole classes. But if we're only focusing on students at the margins, it would be a lot more manageable. And it's a way of asynchronously having these conversations with students, so you don't have to always have a meeting time with them. So it could really be a helpful tool to build into future practices.
Thank you, Jennifer. So that's an example related to ritualizing reflection and revision. Another one, and we were really thinking about you, CNB, when we thought about this. I'm not saying you need to do this example, but we were really thinking, like, if we were in their position, what might something we might do? Setting up a weekly racial affinity circle in your classroom for the first month with Indigenous education staff to assess sense of belonging in the classroom. And we don't mean this in those pressure ways. Literally just, in your mind who you're thinking about calling into the space, right? But then saying, hey, it's been the first week of school. How are we doing with belonging? Simply getting their feedback. What can we change? Doing it again the next week. Great. Now, how are we doing with sense of belonging in the school or in our classrooms? And then doing it again. And the same thing with staff. So that's something that you might prototype. And we saw that related to circling up. And then the last example I'll give you is committing to, and this, we were thinking about you, BVHM, trying to get into our elementary minds. You might commit to co-generating with students a simple structure for playful inquiry during math with opportunities for public learning. So what that looks like to us might be, all right, we have math that we do every day. What could we do so everybody could share their learning, has opportunity to kind of talk about what they've gotten out of our math lessons, and how do we make that fun? You can ask them that. You can try it out and see, not only were they able to articulate their learning, but was it fun? I actually mean that. Was it really an enjoyable experience for them? It shouldn't feel like, stressful. So those are just some examples of things that you can try. And I hope that what you're pulling out of this is simple things, concrete things that are related to your inquiry questions. So with that being said, I want to just first give you time on your own to think about this, and then you all will go into groups. So the question here for your journal is, what is an instructional prototype you might want to try based on the learning you've done so far? So take your reflection from CoGens that you talked about, the learning series, and what you remember from your flip cribs. What's something that you could try? I will bring you back together, and I will say like 4 minutes. I want to give you all an opportunity to talk about this with your teams and to try to get, I want you to figure out a prototype by the time you all come back, because this is our last time for now, hopefully. So here's what I would like you to do. When you go to your group, either you can kind of have your ideas in the background and then use those to co-generate a shared plan or prototype, or you can go to your group and each share the prototype you already have, and then iterate on it. Whatever you want to do is fine. Those are pieces of guidance. You don't have to super stick to those. I just want to make sure you all come out with what you're going to do heading into the fall.
I was going towards the goals or the rules, the simple rule of reflection and revision, and of making their learning public. I know for me, I jotted down the daily reflections as something that I would like to do. What did you learn yesterday? What still feels confusing? I don't know, as sharing as a class, or the dialogue journaling. I think Ana Sanchez did that, right? I think Ana and Charlotte did it. I don't know. I'm pretty sure they did. So kind of talking to them about it. And it seems that daily seems like a lot, maybe weekly. I don't know. I think I would have to get some information from them and read the resource that was shared. And then making their learning public. I really liked Jamila's like idea of like, how can we make it fun for students to articulate their learning, like to show their math learning to others. And then it also made me think about portfolios. I know that that's something that Veronica had talked about as like a move for next year. So that might be a good like goal for next year.
What I'm gonna try to prototype, and I'm pretty excited about this. And I was listening. The idea of, for example, this make students to share their learning to other students and at the same time have fun is pretty much what I was kind of, in the back of my mind all the time. That how can we work more vertically? And I was thinking that one thing that we could do in middle school, at least in the beginning, starting with middle school, I'm gonna talk to Rosalinda, the 6th grade math teacher, and with the new 8th grade math teacher too, and see if they are open to get together somehow. We have to formalize this. I don't know right now on top of my head. So the student can present what they learn and show this to the other students. I mean, 6th grade is going to present to 7th grade, 7th grade is going to present to 8th grade, and maybe all the way around the next cycle. I don't know. I mean, we'll see how this may work. And we can do some kind of fun competition. So kind of like there's going to be a competition. We're gonna give points or whatever, to the student who make a better job, and then we do something that is fun. It's not just something materialistic, but it's just kind of like have something kind of a fun thing that, well, you have I don't know, a special kind of shirt or something because you are the guy who knows it. I don't know. I mean, something kind of like that. I think a student may, or at least some student may, can get the hook and start doing this, get this idea, because it's different. It's working with other students, and I see when they're in the backyard, they work. I mean, 6th, 7th grade are all mixed up with 8th and 6th, so we should do that also academically. I think it's not just and not putting all in boxes, but they share what they know, what they learn, and learn from each other too. At the end, they're going to be teaching, even if they don't know.
That sounds exciting. I mean, I could imagine some kind of sort of game show style math competition that you could cheer their friends on. Maybe they could even help plan it for each other. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, I thought of 2 things that I personally won't be implementing, but just ideas of where things could fit in. But like with the new middle school advisory schedule happening, 4 days a week, that's just like a built-in time that teachers could run cogens, right? With, maybe some kids have a journaling prompt and a couple of kids are pulled together to talk about a question, or, maybe the whole group. But it just seems like that is a very good spot for that circling up idea. And then, I was also thinking about how to gamify things more, right? That's Zaretta Hammond's way of saying it, but just how to make, I know teachers do this, and I know there's tons of ways that we do this with students, for students, but like, how can that just be more of a ongoing way that we have students share their learning?
Yeah, I love those ideas. I was thinking about advisory too, Erin. Thinking about, okay, is it going to make sense to pull kids or do it with a group of 11? Or it's a little big, but maybe it could still work. So that's exciting. Yeah, and just ideas for gamifying things and maybe getting ideas for that from kids is exciting. I mean, for me, I'm really wondering, and I didn't get a chance to do it this year, if I should try a co-gen with a group of teachers and try to have that a few times in the fall. Sort of like a combination of a co-gen and kind of maybe what they were mentioning as the idea for the other school, almost like, you know, pick a group of teachers that wants to give input around something that we're trying, like portfolios or the middle school advisory, or something that we're hoping will engage students from the margins, but get teacher input into how they see that working. I have a strong desire to do co-gens with students, but I almost feel like it might be beneficial for me to experiment with doing that with teachers. So
I like the idea. I think the advisory time as a co-gen setting is great. And I just thinking that how, you know, one way that we can make sure that we include student margin is when we do the groups, you know, when we're gonna set up the cohort, or you know, the name of the students in every advisory group, to make sure that some of them are these students. So there's no one, even one teacher who has no student advisory.
And I really hope we can, you know, share these practices with other people. I think, you know, I'm not sure it's the right moment to be like, everybody, let's do this, but to start spreading it, because I've seen it be so powerful, to think about ways it can spread organically and we can have other people try it. I know one middle school teacher has already asked, who's not been in this group, for a copy of the street data books. I'm like, okay, bit by bit. People are getting interested. So I'm hoping we can kind of build momentum without making it a mandate in the fall.
Okay, so what are we gonna write in the
I
Jamboard?
know, we have so many ideas. What are we gonna commit to?
Do we all have to do the same thing, or can we write like our different things?
I think we are, that's something we're gonna decide as a team, is like, are we committing to doing something similar, or are we all just gonna do our own thing that we wanna commit to? I feel like it's a little hard because two of our teachers aren't here right now.
Just decide just to go on the ideas that you guys each have for now. Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to make decisions for you. Sorry.
No, but you can tell us.
The other folks aren't here right now, and I kind of like Veronica. You're kind of on the co-gen for teachers, right? Which is a little bit different, right, from what Anna and Rafa, you know what I mean, are talking. So like that's fine. You don't have to get all on the same page now. The most important thing is that, you know, like come August, right?
Yeah,
I'm committing to this. So you all might decide later, like, oh, we've all tried this and now we want to do all the same thing together. That's okay.
okay.
Okay, I'm putting mine up there.
I think for me, Veronica, I feel like I hope to learn a lot tomorrow and Friday about portfolios. Like, do you think I'll be able to like implement them and think of it, try to make it like fun for students? Or because I don't know much about them, but hopefully we get a lot of information tomorrow.
Yeah, well, you know, the thing I heard you talk about before was reflection and revision.
Yes, that too.
And that, I think that's key. You know, there's a lot you can do with portfolios.
Mm-hmm.
So here's like a draft, which obviously you could change, but.
Oh, okay, there it is. Let me see. Mm. Yes, that's better.
I don't know. Can you edit when I wrote? I'm not sure. I'll put your. Do you want me
No, that's good.
Okay, I'll just put your.
Sorry, something's in my.
I think that'd be great.
Yeah.
And maybe you can be in my co-gen and we'll do it on portfolios.
I don't know, something I also want to try is like circling up. I know I'm excited, like a big switch, but I think I'm going to get circle tables next year, right, Erin?
Hopefully. We're working on it.
Yeah, which is like a big switch for me because I'm not used to that. So at first I was like, I don't know, but no, it'll be good, a good change. So hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
So circling up.
Are you talking about daily circles or regular?
Sorry?
Are you talking about like circles with students, like class?
No, I'm just thinking like doing more like just circles in the classroom. Like I know this year I kind of like, not until the end of the year did I start doing like community circles again, where we all sat in a circle. You know, we did it at the beginning and then we stopped because of COVID and everybody was back at their desk. So it wasn't until the end again where we started like sitting in a circle, and it just like the energy is just so much different. So just going back to that.
Yeah, I love that. Rafa, are you the gamify learning? No, I see you've got one here.
Yeah, I
Oh yeah, this is so fun. I want to come to that. Make sure to invite me.
sure, of course.
Okay, so this team, you all are in a good place. I have 2 tiny pushes. They're not big at all. I know I said the word fun earlier. I just want to make sure we combine that with student engagement, because it won't always be fun, right? But engaging, right? They have like an intersection, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So as you all keep thinking about these things, I want to make sure that, you know how sometimes it can end up being like, we do this fun thing at this time, right? And then not necessarily like the same idea you have in the gamifying, right? How does that show up then throughout the lesson? It might not be specifically gamifying, but what's the engagement strategy or piece that's related to that? Does that make sense? So I just want you all to make sure you keep those together as you keep on figuring it out. And then I love that you're in like specific places like the Cogen or Circle Up. I heard you start to say something about ritualizing revision. But I wasn't looking at the screen. So don't forget also to tie it to your simple rule, whatever you decide. I see it up here, but just make sure you all don't forget that. So if you want to put a note on there for each person when you come back to tie it to your simple rule, that'd be really great. Okay, so same thing for you all, okay? I see a couple of examples tied to your simple rule, but I wanna make sure you pull that out. And the reason I'm saying that you pull that out is that it anchors you. I know it's probably like annoying when we keep obsessing over like, stay in inquiry question, right? Stay in concrete practice. Because us as educators, it's too hard to hold all the different things. It's just too hard. You all have a lot on your plate, but if you have in your mind, I'm circling up as many, you know, and then you figure out a place that you're doing that, and you come back to that over and over. It's just easier to hold as a pedagogical practice. Y'all know that's true. You know. Anyway, so you could imagine when we come back together somewhere in the fall where it makes sense for both teams, we want to get you to as clarity on that as possible. And if we do get to clarity on that simple rule, you might even be able to do another Cogen related to it, right? And help you improve on whatever you have decided to prioritize. So, all right, before we head on over to closure, I would love if somebody from each group would just share kind of what you were talking about and what you're kind of sitting with or excited about after your conversations today.
I don't know. I'm just excited because I've seen the impact just for my one kiddo and just how much this has really helped them work through some things, like to see like an actual shift in a child through this work and like actively talking to them about the work that I'm doing and leaning into, you know, their culture and their understandings. I think they're feeling very heard while still dealing with some, you know, very real racism, you know, just seeing it through their eyes and actually working through this as an emotional process. It's been it's been a lot, and it's genuinely changed me in my practice. So I'm just feeling so incredibly like grateful, and I'm genuinely shocked at the shift that this has had in my mindset, just from how I look at a poster, or I played a YouTube clip about poetry today, and my first thought was, oh, there's only, white individuals in this, and it's just opening up to a whole new radical mindset, and shocked at still how far I still have to go. And so it's the awareness, now it's implementing that awareness for me.
Yeah, awesome. And I'll just build off Jess. I think we're super excited because we've got a new schedule coming in that our admins worked hard on, that's going to embed time for all the circling up with students. And then we were just talking about ritualizing our accountability and taking that back to the students as well. So having it like on the side, but also then taking it to our practice.
I can't believe you almost didn't share those things. Seriously, that is incredible. Ritualizing your own accountability. I'm about to steal that and take that to another team. That's great. That is fantastic. You just shifted my mind. I mean, we can ritualize reflection and accountability as our own teams. Amanda, thank you for that. Jessica, the implementation of awareness. I mean, this is incredible. Thank you. BVHM, last one from you. What are you excited about from your team, that the discussion you just had?
We shared that we are excited to be able to try Cogens with teachers. Like Veronica shared, maybe try it with teachers around like portfolios, which is a move we're trying to make as a school. Also in middle school, I believe Erin shared that there's going to be possibly some time during the day to hold Cogen discussions with students in smaller groups, and maybe incorporate some journaling reflection with others. So just creating these spaces and continuing this work.
Thank you, Anna. Really appreciate you sharing. Thank you. All right, we have come to the end of our time together. And as I said, I was going to call Jennifer as a witness to this space. So Jennifer, if you would share with us what you witnessed over the series and today.
Okay, here's my biggest, first of all, there's too much to say. So this is just going to be my main takeaway, because I think this is probably the most important point. And I heard a lot of this today. I am somebody who's always focused on like, what is the right way of doing this? What are the rules? What are the instructions? Am I getting it right? And I'm always going back to the book to make sure that I'm getting it right. And what I'm realizing, and this is kind of the whole point of what you all set out to do in this book, is that so many people in the CNB group were talking about how just the process of talking to the students and having the students know that they were genuinely being listened to, already that by itself had such an impact. Even over any solutions and changes that get implemented later, they already saw such a big change just from the act of asking the students to talk and making sure that they believe that they're genuinely being listened to. And I think that you have so much good stuff in here, but that piece is the most important piece of what street data is about. And I'm so impressed by the enthusiasm and the commitment of this group of teachers. And I think that translates when you are talking to the students and they believe you, they believe that you care about them. And that's just what this work is all about. And all of the other details of this are good to go back to make sure that we're doing it as well as we can be. But really, it's just that first thing, that we need to be listening to our students at the margins, and you're doing it. And I am so excited to see what's going to come of this, because right now we're just in a silo, but this is going to go out to teachers for years and years and years. They're going to stumble on this. And I just can't even imagine the ripple effect that this could have on individual students who are floating around right now, feeling invisible all over the world, and they're not going to eventually because of the work you're doing. So thank you.
There's not a lot to follow up on with that, So we really appreciate you. I'm like, oh my gosh, Anna's team's gonna do co-gens with teachers and students, and we're gonna have these reflections and all this stuff happening. I know you all are gonna continue this work. Please look out for us to talk with you all about the dates. We're thinking September and November. We really appreciate you. We couldn't have done any of this without you. You have come every single time to these sessions and stayed committed. So the last thing I ask from you all in this final 2 minutes is to chat a celebration for this community of practice. You have done a lot of celebrations for your students, but I want to offer you an opportunity to celebrate you all in here. So if you want to chat your celebration for this community of practice, or you want to come off of mute and share it, that is great, but I really want to read them out loud and acknowledge the folks in this room. Jessica says, thank you all for sharing your voices. Amanda says, thank you for being brave. Sarah says, thank you for showing up and being vulnerable. Veronica, I celebrate the BVHM teachers who made time for co-gens and empathy interviews with students. And everybody here who did that as well. I'm so impressed by the ethic of care all of you all hold from winter. Erin said, love that we are all embracing the messiness. Yes. From Rafa, thank you all for fighting for equity and social justice in our schools. Lauren said, thank you all for teaching me so much. I can't wait to move forward. And I would end this by saying thank you for teaching us so much. I really mean, like, I just wrote the ideas down that you all shared. And we have been applying so much of what we learned from you all to our own practice. So we appreciate you all. And we wish you a phenomenal summer. I hope you all have some relaxing plans coming up very soon. You all have done great, and we thank you.